I had been looking forward to my long weekend getaway for months. Work had been insane, my social life non-existent, and my tiny condo in a quiet HOA community had become my little haven. I had left Friday morning, telling my neighbors I'd be back Sunday night. I had no idea that by Saturday evening, my life was about to turn into a reality TV episode starring none other than the notorious HOA Karen. As I turned onto my street early Saturday evening, I noticed something was off. There was a strange car parked in my usual spot. At first I thought maybe a neighbor had borrowed it, but then I saw the lights on inside my condo. That wasn't possible. I hadn't even turned my smart lights on remotely. My heart rate quickened. I parked my car and approached the front door cautiously. That's when I saw him. A young man lounging on my couch like he owned the place, soda can in hand, headphones on, completely oblivious to the fact that this was my home. "Hello?" I said, my voice trembling with confusion. The kid jumped, almost spilling his soda. "Whoa, who are you?" Before he could finish, the door behind him burst open, and there she was. HOA Karen herself, the neighborhood's self-appointed watchdog, stormed in. She looked like she had seen a ghost store. Maybe she was afraid I'd see hers. "Back?" she stammered, her eyes darting nervously. I called the cops. They're on their way." I blinked. "Excuse me? What exactly is going on here?" Karen's son, apparently the same young man lounging in my living room, looked just as shocked as I felt. "Mom, I didn't think they'd come back this early," he muttered. Karen's face turned red. I thought, well, I didn't think you'd be back. I thought you'd let me handle things." I finally pieced it together. Apparently, Karen had been supervising her son, staying at my condo, while I was away. How she got that idea, I had no clue. And she didn't just supervise. He had treated my home like his personal man cave by now. A neighbor had started to gather outside, curious about the commotion. I took a deep breath, trying to control my anger. "Karen, your son is in my home. I never gave either of you permission to be here. What exactly did you think you were doing?" I asked, my voice calm but icy. Karen opened her mouth, then closed it. She fumbled with her purse, like she was searching for something that might excuse her behavior. He said you might not mind." I thought, he's like family, he needed a place. And, well, it's just a few days. I raised an eyebrow. "A few days? Did you also let him eat my food? Sit on my furniture? Watch my TV? Use my bathroom?" Karen hesitated. "Well, he borrowed some snacks." "Borrowed," I echoed, my voice growing louder. "This is my home. You don't just borrow my home like it's a hotel." Her son looked genuinely uncomfortable. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. Mom said it was okay. I turned to her. "Karen, you cannot just assume it's okay. This is trespassing. And you called the cops on me?" Karen shifted uncomfortably. I panicked. "I thought you'd be upset about him being here, so I called the police to explain." I took a deep breath. "You know what? Let's wait for the cops. I think they need to hear this story too." Within minutes, 2 police officers arrived. Karen immediately pointed at me, still trying to paint me as the intruder. "Officer, she just showed up." I didn't know what to do. She might get aggressive. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. The officers looked at each other, then turned to me. "Ma'am, are you the resident?" "Yes," I said firmly. "This is my condo. These 2, I gestured to Karen and her son, have been here without my permission." The officers nodded. "We'll need statements from everyone." Karen tried to interject, but one of the officers cut her off. "Ma'am, this is trespassing. We'll take statements and let the homeowner decide what action to take." Her son looked mortified. "Mom, this is getting worse." Karen muttered something under her breath. I couldn't hear it, but the look on her face said it all. She realized the jig was up. I explained the situation clearly to the officers. How I had left for the weekend, how Karen had let her son live in my condo, and how she called the police to report me. The officers listened, asked a few questions, and finally told Karen she was trespassing. Karen's face turned crimson. I didn't mean any harm. The officers politely but firmly told her and her son to leave immediately. They complied, muttering under their breath. But I could tell the tension wasn't gone. Once the coast was clear, I walked around my condo, checking for damage. Surprisingly, there wasn't much. A few empty soda cans, a half-eaten bag of chips, and some crumbs on the couch, but nothing significant. Still, the violation of my privacy stung more than any material damage ever could. I texted my neighbors, explaining the situation and asking if anyone had seen Karen acting suspiciously around my property. 2 neighbors replied almost immediately, confirming that Karen had been checking in. On my condo while I was gone, I realized something. This wasn't just about her son. This was about control. Karen seemed to think she had the right to decide who could live or temporarily stay in my home. I decided to take a proactive step. I called the HOA, explaining the incident in detail. While they didn't have direct authority over private property trespassing, they did take complaints seriously. I made sure the record was official, just in case Karen tried any more antics. That night, as I sat on my couch in my own home, I reflected on what had just happened. It was surreal. Someone had literally lived in my space without permission. And not only had the HOA tried to overstep, but the mother had even called the police on me. I realized I needed better security. I installed smart locks, upgraded my security cameras, and even added a motion sensor system. No more surprises, no more borrowed homes, and certainly no more panicked HOA interventions. The experience taught me an important lesson. Never assume neighbors or their kids understand boundaries. And never underestimate how far some people will go when they think authority gives them power over your life. The following week, I noticed that Karen and her son were unusually quiet around the neighborhood. Word had spread about the incident, and I could feel the judgmental looks whenever we crossed paths. But honestly, I didn't mind. I felt a sense of justice, knowing that the land common sense was on my side. Karen couldn't trespass, and her son couldn't treat my home like a second residence. I even ran into one of the officers later who smiled and said, "Good on you for handling that calmly. You kept your cool, and they left without incident." That validation felt good. I realized that keeping calm, documenting everything, and letting the authorities do their job was the best way to protect yourself against entitled neighbors. A few weeks later, I hosted a small gathering at my condo with close friends and neighbors. The topic of HOA Karen naturally came up, and while I shared the story, I did so with a sense of humor. It felt empowering to take a potentially stressful situation and turn it into a lesson about boundaries and self-respect. No one needs to live in fear of neighbors who think the rules don't apply to them. Your home is your sanctuary, and you have every right to protect it. And as for Karen, she learned the hard way that my home is off limits. From that day forward, I made one rule for myself when it comes to HOA drama. Always trust your instincts, always document everything, and never let someone else assume control over your life, for your space. This story is just the beginning. There is so much more ahead. Subscribe to the channel to join me on this journey.